Hi everyone! In today's reading lesson we are looking at the learning challenge I Can Build a Wide Vocabulary. We are going to look at an information text and we are going to spot some of the tricky words that we might not have heard before and we're not sure what they mean. And then we are going to have a go at clarifying what those words mean by using our Year 1 clarifying strategies where we kind of infer what a word means from reading the text. So the first thing that we are going to do is our Reactivate section. If we're reading a text and we don't know what a word means, have a talk or have a think. What could we do if we don't know what that word means? Do we just give up and think, oh, well, I don't know what that means, so I can't understand the text all? Or are there some things that we could do? Have a pause of the video now and think of the things that we could do if we find a word and we don't know what it means. Okay, so as you know, there are a number of things we could do when we are not sure what a word means. And here is a list of them. The first thing we could do is we could look for clues in the sentence. So we find that word that we don't know what it means, and we could read the sentence and see if we can have a sensible guess what's happening in that sentence, even though we don't know what the word means. Another thing we could do is we could think about the word class. So if it is a word that you've never heard before and it is describing an elephant, then you might think about what you know about elephants and think, oh, well, that word is describing an elephant, so maybe I can have a guess at what it means. You could look for clues in the word. Sometimes words have got clues in them. So, for example, in the word moonlight, if you didn't know what moonlight was, you could have a sensible guess because it's got the word moon in it. And the moon, you know, is something that is in the sky at night. And then it's also got the word light in it, which is when something is shining so that you can see. So moonlight is when the moon at night shines so you can see a little bit. That's what moonlight is. It's when you can see at night because the moon is shining. We could use our prior knowledge. That means we might have heard the word before in a different place and we can think back to where we've heard the word before and then use what we already know to have a sensible guess about what the word means. And finally, we could look it up either in a dictionary or we could type the word into Google and see what Google says that it means. So if we're not sure what our word means when we are reading, there are loads of things we could do. We could make an inference or we could look it up. We are going to read this text, and this text is about meerkats. And then I'm going to give you some words and we are going to have a go at talking about what those words might mean. This text is an information text, so it has quite a lot of complex vocabulary in. That means words which are specific to do with nature and animals and meerkats, sort of science words. And they're the ones that we're going to have a go at clarifying. We're going to be using all those different strategies today, so you've got to pick the one that you think would be most useful to have a go at clarifying the words. Here is the text about meerkats. I'm going to read it. After I've read it, you can pause the video and have a talk about what you've learned, and you can listen to this text as many times as you want to. I will attach it as well if you'd like to have a go at reading it yourself. Meerkat. Diet, omnivore. Lifespan in the wild, 12 to 14 years. Size, 25 to 30 centimetres. Weight, less than 1 kilogram. Group name, mob or gang. Status, least concern. Meerkats are very social animals and live in groups called mobs or gangs. They live in underground burrows in the Kalahari Desert and parts of South Africa. Their curved claws are used for digging and foraging for insects. They can close their ears to keep out the dust when they are burrowing. Meerkats eat insects such as scorpions, beetles, centipedes, spiders, and worms. They also eat birds, lizards, and fruit. Meerkats search for food in groups. Some members will guard the entrance of the burrow, keeping a lookout for predators such as eagles and falcons. If a meerkat spots trouble, they will bark and whistle loudly to alert the other members of the group. Okay, what I would like you to do, you can listen to that again if you would like to, if you want to rewind the video, and then pause the video and have a chat with the person near you or have a think. What have you learned about meerkats from listening to that text? What do you know now? There are lots of things that we have learned from reading this text. It's an information text, so that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to inform us about meerkats. You might have said that from this text you have learned that meerkats live in the Kalahari Desert and South Africa. You might say they have got curved claws. You might have said that they eat insects like scorpions and beetles. And you might have said that sometimes they bark and whistle when there's trouble, when they think they might get eaten. So we've learnt lots and lots about meerkats from reading this text, and there are some things we might not understand because there are some big words that we haven't heard before. So we are going to have a go at clarifying some of these words. These are the words that we are looking for. They are omnivore, lifespan, mob, burrows, foraging, guard, and predators. So we are going to choose these words one at a time, and we are going to have a guess at what they mean, a sensible guess at what they mean. Or if you're really struggling to find a sensible guess, then you could look it up. You could type it into Google too. So we're going to start with omnivore. The first thing we need to do is we need to find it in the text. So I'm going to go back to the text, and I am looking for the word omnivore. It starts with an O and then a omnivore. And it is phonetically decodable. So once I've found it, I can check that I've got the right one. I'm going to highlight in green for clarifying, but don't worry if you haven't got a green highlighter, you can find it in any colour. So it starts with an O, and oh, it's right there near the beginning. Omnivore, I'm going to highlight that word. O, niv, or omnivore. Omnivore, I can use my phonics to read that word. Brilliant. Now I've found the word omnivore, I'm going to have a go at clarifying what it means. So I'm going to look for clues around here to see if I can find any clues first. So I'm going to read the words around it to see if there are any clues. Okay, so this word here says diet. Now, I might know what a diet is, or I might not. I know. What's a diet? Have a think about what a diet is. Do you know what a diet is? Or do you know what an omnivore is? So there are two ways we can work this out. Firstly, I am going to read this word here, diet, and use that to help me. So I know that my diet is things like salad and curry and spaghetti and pasta, and maybe some oranges, and maybe lots of water. And my diet is all those things. It's food, isn't it? Food and drink. It's the things that I eat and go into my belly. So diet, you might know that diet is the things that they eat. So the word omnivore must be something to do with what the meerkats eat. Well done. So I've used that clue there about the word diet, because diet is what you eat. So omnivore is probably something to do with what the meerkats eat, because this text is about meerkats. Now see if you can use your prior knowledge. Have we done anything in school about omnivores before? Have you ever learned about omnivores before? Have a think. Okay, so it's to do with something that they eat, and I've just remembered. Last week in science, we learned about what animals eat, and some of those animals were omnivores. Can you remember what omnivores might eat? That's right. We learned that omnivores are animals that sometimes eat other animals and sometimes eat plants. So all of a sudden, we've managed to clarify that word omnivore by reading this word diet reading the word that is near it and thinking about what about eating, and then using our prior knowledge as well of where we've heard the word omnivore before. We heard it last week in science, and it means animals that eat other animals and plants. So now, amazingly, we can clarify this word omnivores, because omnivores are animals that eat other animals and plants. They eat both other animals and plants. And we've clarified the word omnivore. Super. So let's have a look at our strategies. What did we do? We had a look for clues in the sentence. It wasn't actually a sentence, it was more of a fact file box, but we looked for clues when we found the word. And we also used our prior knowledge. So those are the two things that we did to clarify that word omnivore. Let's have a look at the next word. The next word that we are looking for is actually two words. It's a phrase. And it is lifespan. We can use our phonics to read this as well. Life, span. Lifespan. So we're going to look for lifespan. We're going to see what strategies we could use to figure out what it means. Lifespan. I've never heard that phrase before. Life and then span. So we're looking for a word that begins with L and then S. Oh, and it's near the beginning too. Can you spot it? It's just here. Life span. So I'm going to neatly highlight that. Now, how could I clarify what the word lifespan means? I know I could read the other words that are around it and see if that gives me any clues. Lifespan in the wild, 12 to 14 years. So what's lifespan then? Lifespan in the wild, 12 to 14 years. Okay, I've read the words that are around it, and this is what I think. 12 to 14 years is like how old you could be, isn't it? You could be 12 or 14 years old. And in the wild, well, I know that the wild, when you're a wild animal, you live on your own. You don't live near the humans. You're not looked after by the humans. You live on your own in the wild. So that means not in a zoo. The wild means out in a different country, not living with humans, not having humans help you live. So not a pet, just a completely wild animal lives on its own. So it's something about age maybe, or living without humans, not living in a zoo. Okay, that's helped me a little bit. Have a think, is there anything else we could do? We've read the words around it and we've got some clues. I know we could look at the word life. So the word life is what's life? That's right, life is like when you're alive, isn't it? So it's being alive. So now this starts to make more sense. Talk to your partner or have a think. Now what do you think lifespan means? It's about being alive, not in a zoo, and 12 or 14 years. What's a lifespan then? Brilliant. So lifespan must mean that the meerkats, they can live to be 12 or 14 years. Yeah, lifespan means being alive. And the meerkats, it says, are 12 to 14 years. So they can be 12 to 14 years old. They start off as babies and they grow up. And then usually when they get to 12 to 14, that's like being a really old meerkat. And then they might die soon after that. And in the wild just means when they're not in a zoo. So maybe they don't live to be 12 or 14 when they're in a zoo, but when they're in the wild living on their own in Africa, then they might live to be 12 or 14. That makes brilliant sense. So lifespan is how long they live, yeah, or how old they get. So that's super. Let's have a look what strategies we've used. To clarify lifespan, we looked for clues in the sentence, we looked for clues in the word, and we sort of used our prior knowledge a little bit as well. We used all three of those things to clarify what lifespan means. It means how long they live or how old they get. So let's type that in. Their lifespan is 12 to 14 years, so that means how long they live. You're doing a really good job clarifying these year ones. Right, let's look for the word mob. Or b, a nice phonically decodable one. Let's look for the word mob and see if we can figure out how we can clarify it. Mob. Oh, I can see it there. Is there anywhere else that you can see it? Oh yeah, I can see it there too. Brilliant. We've got the word mob and the word mobs there. Right. This time I'm going to give you a little bit less help to start with. Pause the video and think about how we can clarify the word mob. What strategy could we use? We've found it. What are we going to do next? Think about what it means. Brilliant ideas. I heard somebody say that first we can pick this one and we can read the words around it and see if that helps us. Let's do that. Group name, mob or gang? Well, I know what a group is. A group is when lots of people are all together, isn't it? But are we talking about people? No, we're talking about meerkats. Maybe a group of meerkats, because the text is about meerkats and it says the group there. So maybe the word mob is something to do with a group of meerkats. Let's read the sentence too to check whether that would make sense. Meerkats are very social animals and they live in groups. So they have a home in groups called mobs or gangs. Brilliant. So where they live, their home is in a group called a mob. But we're not talking about a group of people because this text is about meerkats. So a group of meerkats is what we're talking about, where they're all together. There are lots of them. So have a go on your own. They live in groups called mobs. Have a go at telling me now. You don't have to write it down just yet. Just have a talk about what you think a mob might be. They live in groups called mobs. Are we talking about people? No, we're not. Pause the video now. What's a mob in this text? Well done. So you just told me that a group of meerkats is a mob, or lots of meerkats all together. So now we can write down what a mob is in this text. A mob is a group of meerkats that live together. And we hadn't heard that word before, but from reading the text, we can have a sensible guess what it is. It makes sense. Okay, next you have got these words: burrows, foraging, guard, and predators. I would like you to find them in the text and have a go at using the clues to have a sensible guess about what those words mean. If you still aren't sure from reading the text, there is always the option to type it into Google and find out what it means that way. So what I would like you to do is pause the video now and one at a time find each of those words and see if you can figure out what they might mean. Pause the video now and have your best shot. Okay, well done at having a go at that, year ones. You've done a really good job. So just to clarify, we might have used our prior knowledge, we might have looked for clues in the word, we might have looked for clues in the sentence, or we could always look it up on Google if we still weren't sure. So even though some of those words are really tricky, we can have a sensible guess at what they mean. Finally, we are quickly going to talk about this one. My friend says that the word alert means sleep. What do you think about that? Pause the video. Do you think the word alert means sleep? Yes or no, and how do you know? Okay, so there are a number of ways we could work this out. We've got the word alert and we think it maybe means sleep. So we are going to find it in the text first, and this one is quite near the end. Alert. Now, to work out whether alert means sleep, what should we do? Well, maybe we should read the sentence. I agree with you. If a meerkat spots trouble, so if something bad is happening, they will bark and whistle loudly. So if they're in trouble, they will make loud sounds to alert the other members of the group. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put the word sleep in there and see if it still makes sense. If a meerkat is in trouble, they will bark and whistle loudly and make lots of noise to make the other members of the group go to sleep, or to sleep the other members of the group. Does that make sense? If you're making lots of noise because you're in trouble, you would send everyone else to sleep. I don't think so either. So that means that when my friend says the word alert means sleep, are they right? No, perhaps not. So if a meerkat is in trouble, they are barking and whistling loudly to alert the other members of the group. Have a talk about what the word alert might mean. If a meerkat spots trouble, they're going to bark and whistle loudly to alert the other meerkats. What are they trying to do? I heard somebody say that they are making loud noises to tell the other meerkats. So they're sort of talking to the other meerkats or shouting to the other meerkats. And I think that's a far better idea. They're not making the other meerkats go to sleep. They're making the other meerkats alert. They're shouting at them to wake them up to make sure they know what's happening. So the meerkats bark and whistle loudly to alert the other members of the group. They are shouting at them. They are telling them to be careful. So the word alert probably does not mean sleep. I think it means shouting at them, letting them know, telling them what's happening so that they can be careful. If you would like to do the deeper learning, you could read this one. It says, clarify the word social, then explain what clues in the text help you infer the meaning. So you can find the word social and see if you can figure out what it means. And then you can have a go at writing down which words help you know what it means. So if you would like to have a go at that one is a tricky one. That is an extra challenge for you if you really enjoy clarifying those tricky words in this text. And once you've done that, you are sorted for today's reading lesson, Year Ones. It was a really tricky one, so well done, brilliant perseverance. I'm really impressed and I can't wait to see what definitions you have come up with.